Bases dropped on Thursday thoughts here on SDH, and I think I barely made it just before 9:06. John here, Jarrett there. Jarrett's on a Thursday into his Irish goodbyes and drifting in and out as such. Busy show. Actually, it's a busy day here on the network because a lot of different things are going on, and it's the morning show here, and Thursday is going to be what it traditionally is. That will not be any kind of a surprise. After we're done at noon, what we're going to be doing here on the network is we're going to be taking daily looks at the Georgia high school playoffs. And so soccer is in session. We'll be live at noon, probably from noon to 1. And we'll do this every day that we've got the playoffs until the playoffs are done. We'll try to catch up with coaches around the state and get their thoughts about what happened the night before, getting ready for next matchups, those kinds of things. Will Homskus, the head coach of the Lincoln County girls team, he's going to be kicking us off at 12:05. And we'll go for an hour. 1 o'clock is when we have the announcements for the next round of Open Cup. So we'll be doing kind of a watch-along-y kind of a thing with that and see how things are going to line up for Open Cup. And Jarrett with opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com, with this being the QR code for those of you who are watching, however you are watching, whether it's on the YouTubes, on the Twitch, or on the 280-character app. Don't forget, use that QR code. Go to our friends at Kickoff Coffee. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives. Just ask our golden ticket holder, Melissa Ortiz, who is one of the co-founders of Kickoff Coffee, and you can get your day started with your friends at Kickoff Coffee. So, with the kickoff being what it is, Jarrett last night, after one particular result, is hoping for something to happen in the 1 o'clock half hour that would, I'm not going to say bring the state to a stop, but I think it would be a damn good place to start.
I'm going to preface this by telling you the same thing that the cup.us will always tell you, which is your best source, your unaffiliated source, not affiliated with U.S. Soccer, yes, but does a better job than U.S. Soccer of keeping track of the U.S. Open Cup. I think that's hard. But the geography of the groups will make no sense. No one here owns a map or a globe or a sextant or a compass or anything that might be used to find where you are in the physical, ever-expanding universe at any given moment in time. The groups will not make sense. But if there is a crazy Old Testament God, if there are any of the chaos gods that may exist and be actively working in or against us, we will see Atlanta United hopefully have to travel down to Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia to play a sanctioned U.S. Open Cup match. I am ready to go outside. I've got the hatchet sharpened. I don't know how many chickens you need sacrificed, but I can probably knock out a solid number before 1 o'clock.
And the reason that we are suggesting this is because of what happened last night. And there was a lot that happened last night. Traditionally,
this certainly wasn't the dumbest game. It certainly wasn't the best mic'd up game.
No.
That was in Hartford.
No,
yeah. The boom mic next to the bench.
Oh yeah. And so we'll be getting into that. But last night, and you and I have been discussing what goes on with Open Cup, and traditionally, if it's on back-to-back nights, if one night is calm, the other night is chaos. It's just like the NCAA college basketball tournament, where if you have a day of chalk in the opening rounds, traditionally either the next day or what have you, there's going to be chaos that will follow.
Am I wrong in saying NHL's kind of like that too in the playoffs?
No.
If we get a chill night in NHL playoffs, that means the next night is going to have at least one game that goes like 5-4 with multiple fights and possibly a couple of like game conduct penalties.
No, you're right.
Emilio and Tom, that's actually something they're talking about not being able to find it. That's actually, I think, in the process of kind of showing his ass with Garber's comments where he kind of showed his ass in the offseason about the Open Cup, one of the more like logical points he made was this, is that U.S. Soccer does a really crappy job of promoting where you can keep up with this stuff. You had to look up, you had to go search where I can watch these games and find them on the U.S. Soccer website. It's well organized when you get there. I shouldn't have to work that hard to find where it is, especially as a devout sicko to the U.S. Open Cup.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the points that Garber was not hammering his own toe over.
Yes. And so
you were not alone there, Emilio.
No. And so what we traditionally do, they are on YouTube, but you've got to find the link. And so
and you can't just, it's hard to just straight up search it.
Yeah, and the cup.us on Twitter does a great job of laying out where the YouTube links are. So
again, unaffiliated with U.S. Soccer, but does a better job of covering and updating the cup than the damn federation does.
Right. And so follow the cup.us, and on Twitter, they will tell you, okay, here's the YouTube link. You click on it, the window pops up, and then you can take it full or go to YouTube or what have you. So there are YouTube links to watch these. Yes, they do send you to MLSsoccer.com and USsoccer.com and USLsoccer.com.
And the irony is not lost on any of us. But you also had MLS Next Pro teams in there.
Correct.
So, but the irony is not lost on anybody, I promise you.
Yes.
We know it's very dumb.
Yes, and so that they do exist, and it is the whole idea of watching what happened last night. So since 2 days ago it was calm, last night was beyond chaotic. Richmond and Loudoun, they went 120 minutes. Nobody scored. They went to PKs at City Stadium in Richmond. It went to the bottom of the fifth. Loudoun saves the PK attempt by Richmond in the bottom of the fifth to advance, and they went and celebrated with the 10 fans that made the trip from Segra to City Stadium over in the corner. The game that you wanted to talk about, actually, tell you what, we'll build up to it. North Carolina FC beat Carolina.
Let's talk about it now because I have to leave in a minute.
All right, so then we'll talk about it now. NYCFC and Hartford Athletic. This one was at Trinity Health Stadium in Hartford. So it goes 90 minutes. It goes more than 90 minutes. They've got to go the extra 30. NYCFC would score to take the lead 3-2 in the second 15 minutes. Then all hell breaks loose. And I'm not kidding when I say this. You can go back and watch. I think the matches are still up if you click on the YouTube links and such. All hell broke loose in the last, say, 10 minutes of the match with NYCFC 2 scoring, and then trying to get to the conclusion of 120 minutes. Jarrett, before you leave for the first time, proceed.
Yes, NYCFC scored. Well worked. Noted MLS menace Reese Buckmaster was skinned alive as though he were a throwaway soldier in a Predator movie.
Mm-hmm.
Shot gets deflected, lands, and then I think it was actually a home run for NYC. He scored. It was a really nice finish. They take the lead. Then you get Hartford picks up a red card. A well-deserved red card, comes in Mahoras Patatas. Like the kind of foul that gets retweeted in accounts that revel in showing you insane fouls.
Yes.
Blatant red card, you get sent off. Then you get a Hartford player pulled down in, if you've ever seen a quarterback sack where the defensive back, the defender only gets a part of the jersey and just slings the quarterback down.
Yeah.
At Mach 3. That's the kind of tackle it was. But then the guy who got tackled, I think, kicked out. So he gets sent off. So that's 2 red cards in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Then a player from NYC2 gets sent off. Then the coach from Hartford, I think, gets sent off. One of the coaches from Hartford.
Probably the assistant.
I think one of the assistants gets sent off. I know one of the Carolina Corps assistants got sent off. That was a fun one too. So you had, I think, 3 or 4 red cards in the last 20 minutes of stoppage time. You were very close to the Silverbacks Colorado Rapids event horizon of stupidity with Open Cup. But the best part of the night was that the boom mic, or I don't know. I'm assuming it was a boom, unless somebody was standing there with a parabolic microphone.
Yeah, stationary microphone aimed at the surf, the playing surface.
You could hear every coach, every fan, every complaint, every word.
Oh.
Holy Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And it was art.
It was.
It
It
was art.
absolutely was.
It was Magic Cup stupid art, and I am so glad we got to enjoy that together because the coaches were losing their minds, the Hartford fans were losing their mind. NYCFC2 advanced, which I think now might mean that they have more wins in the Open Cup than Nick Cushing does on the season
Yeah.
as the first team coach. So, yeah, go back and watch the end of that one. That was fun.
Yes.
Everybody's getting sent off and fighting each other.
And we know those are fun. So it ended up with, 3 red cards. It finished up 10-9. Marcus Epps and Deshane Beckford get red cards in that second 15 minutes where you had horse collars, you had nasty tackles. It was a cage fight in Hartford last night. So Epps and Beckford get the two Hartford reds. And then Chris Chow ended up getting the NYCFC red. Like I said, the game finished 10-9. And also, if you ended up, Brendan Burke for Hartford got a yellow, the manager. So that's where we were with cards. If you also watched the match last night, and if you go back and watch, you will see both Romario Williams and Anderson Asayadu, who are now in Hartford. And this is the other element of all of this, that you get to catch up with folks that you might have missed. So the way that it laid out, it was an 81st. Well, Calera scores in the 63rd to make it 1-0. Romario scores in the 81st to tie it. Deshane Beckford scores in the 92nd to make it 2-1. Calera gets his brace for NYC in the 99th to make it 2-2. Carrizo, who is the 17-year-old, Maximo Carrizo, keep an eye on him. He was the one who scored in the 109th minute. So 4th minute, second extra frame. That made it 3-2, and then all hell broke loose. So recommended watching. You can skip to, say, the second 15 minutes of what's going on in Hartford and NYC. But NYCFC2 advances, Hartford Athletic at home. And it was one of those incidents where you had the center ref protected by security. Deshane Beckford, after he ends up getting his red card, is trying to jaw with the center ref to no avail. The center ref, literally, you had the event staff guy, the one that we always see at the events, and he wasn't even wearing a yellow jacket. I mean, it was the event staff jacket guy with the hat, looked like he was about 240, and 2 other security guys were near the center ref during all of this going on. So you end up with security protecting center ref while the Hartford players are getting their yellows late or their reds late to get it to 10-9. I mean, and it was blackjack dealer. Bang, bang, bang. That's what it was. So 10-9, finish. NYCFC2 wins to move on to the next round. Chaos. Watch it. You can go to ussoccer.com and they'll click to the link. North Carolina FC beat Carolina Core by the score of 1-0. Fairly harmless there. North Carolina scored early, and Carolina Core could not break down North Carolina FC. Our friend Stephen Glass got the win over one of the last amateur side to play. You had the 2 amateur sides, El Farolito and Miami United. They both made it to this round. And apparently, El Farolito is going to get the $25,000 as the last amateur side that went the furthest. They had to go to tiebreakers, and it ended up being goals scored. So it looks like El Farolito is going to get the $25,000 good on our favorite burrito restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area. Miami FC and South Georgia Tormenta. This one had its own batch of crazy, too. So first half, and we'll have the deciding highlight coming up in just a little bit. In the half, late first half, it was South Georgia Tormenta who had the early lead. Then they scored. Jake Dengler scored in the 12th minute. Then Luisinho scores from 30 on a bomb for the Miami FC to tie it at 1. Late first half, you have activity, and the Miami FC had a 6'7" goalie. They had a 6'7" keeper, and he hadn't gotten a whole lot of reps, and it was his opportunity to try and impress. So in the early 40s minutes, there's a corner, and it is sent in. And the reason I'm telling you all of this and not having you listen to it, we'll break that down in a second. Corner goes in, 6'7" keeper has to jump backward and kind of contort and clear and punch it away. Collides with a South Georgia Tormenta player. And in that collision, the South Georgia Tormenta player ends up getting a mouse under his eye from the contact. And I thought he had a bloody nose at one point. And so you see on the broadcast, after the keeper is down and he's trying to recover and the South Georgia Tormenta player is trying to recover and all these kinds of things going on, you see the Miami FC goalie, the 6'7" keeper, be subbed out. And we find out 20 minutes later that it was because he got a red card for violent conduct. There was a reason that the Tormenta player had a mouse under his eye. So in the 40s, you have the Miami FC have to change out a keeper. And so a man down for the latter part of the first half, the Miami FC scored. They had a 2-1 lead. Go to the second half, man down. The Miami FC is trying to fight and combat and fight and make sure that they can keep the lead. They don't. And it was because of a moment like this. They were tied at 2 when they were no longer tied at 2. And so here's this particular highlight, and this is a good time to get your first goal of the year. Once again, courtesy of our friends at US Soccer. Here's how South Georgia Tormenta would eventually take the lead.
Working quickly on this. Back post Rodriguez. He fell in his wallet. Obviously lucky enough to get that ball away. Tunbridge again with backspin on it. Bouncing around. Rodriguez can't get to it. It's 3-2 Tormenta. Well, a Herculean effort. Callum Stretch with the goal. Working quickly on this.
Callum
Back post
Stretch,
Rodriguez. He fell in his
So that's one thing I forgot to do. I forgot to take the loop out. But yeah, Callum Stretch got his first goal of the season in the 88th minute to make it 3-2. And then as the Miami FC is trying to chase, Vivas scores in transition for Tormenta. Tormenta with the cup set. They win 4-2 over the Miami FC. Thanks again to our friends at US Soccer for the highlight for Callum Stretch. So Callum Stretch gets the go-ahead goal in the 88th minute. They score once more to make it 3-2. And so Tormenta moves on to the next round. And this is why Jarrett is hoping, and we are all hoping. We are hoping, I think, hope, and not hoping against hope, but we are hoping openly here that there will be some logic when it comes to the pods as the groups, that they come out at 1 o'clock. That you don't know. Draw is this afternoon, 4-card. 4-card, the draw is at 1 o'clock today. The draw is at 1 o'clock today. And they're not wasting any time. You're going to have the draw, and we're going to kind of walk our way through it with you. We'll have kind of a watch along at 1 o'clock. And we will Tormenta, we are hoping that Tormenta and Atlanta United pair up in the next round. We are hoping, because to have, say, a matchup involving South Georgia Tormenta and our friends, Atlanta United. If you had that on your grid, that would be tremendous. So, once again, at US Open Cup on Twitter, at US Open Cup. So if you've missed any replays, if you've missed any matches, you can go here, and that's where you go and you can look at replays and things like that. So 1 o'clock this afternoon, and we're going to do a watch along here on the network. We will walk through it. We don't know yet. Tom is wondering the draw pools or groups or whatever the terminology is going to be. Don't know yet. The information might come out a little bit before, and if it comes out while we're on the air, we'll let you know. We'll break it down that way. But no, this is going to be a long day here at the network. But don't know who is in our pool, and it is determined that MLS teams will not play the USL Championship teams. They're all coming in at the same time. So it is going to be the survivors of today and the other squads. So MLS teams coming in today will not be playing USL Championship teams that come in today. So the 16 teams that are being added at this point, they will be paired with the 16 teams that have survived to this point. And we're going to walk through the rest of the matchups, and we'll let you know what happens there. But if the groups are released, and like I said, if the pods are released or the groups or whatever phraseology you want to use, if they are released during the show, obviously we'll go through it. We got Champions League to get through. We got News of the Morning to get you through. Again, there is some news overseas. But if anything happens involving Open Cup leading up to the 1 o'clock release of the new groups in the round of 32, the final round of 32, which I guess is the fourth round officially. So we'll let you know. We'll keep you posted on that. So it's going to be kind of a developing story situation involving Open Cup all morning. But we will get to Champions League in the 10 o'clock hour. We'll get to all the other news in the 10 o'clock hour. Niko is going to join us at 10:30 as he traditionally does. So Tormenta advances. They win 4-2. That's how they make it to the next round. Birmingham and Chattanooga played last night at the University of Montevallo, which is 40 minutes south of Birmingham. Would have been nice maybe if they'd gotten an homage to Birmingham Southern before the university closes and played there. But, of course, we remember what happened the last time Legion played at Birmingham Southern. So Birmingham and Chattanooga, they go back and forth. And it was 2-2 as Chattanooga was a man down late. And then later than late, as Chattanooga ended up getting a red, and you end up with the goals on the board for Chattanooga. 2-2 late, goes to the extra 30, and then Birmingham takes care of business, and it was a red card for Gustavo Fernandez for the Red Wolves. So it was 2-2 after 90, and the Red Wolves had to fight a man down in the extra 30, and Birmingham scores twice in the extra 30 minutes to get the win. Stefano Pino had a busy day. He ended up with a hat trick. It was goal in the 48th, and then you end up with Leo Fala had the goal first for Chattanooga. They had a lead. Birmingham scores in the 48th. Pino in the 80th at 105+1, and in the 107th after Ruiz had a penalty. So Pino scores twice in 2 minutes and ends up with a very busy night for Birmingham. Birmingham advances in extra time over Chattanooga Red Wolves. So that's how Birmingham got to the next round. Union Omaha and El Paso Locomotive, they played forever. They played 90, nobody scored. They played 120, nobody scored. They go into PKs, and the 17-year-old substitute, academy product, gets the goal for the Murder Owls, Bronick. So Bronick scores in the fifth, top of the fifth PK goes in, and that's how Union Omaha advances. Indy 11 and Chicago Fire played in front of tens of people at Bridgeview. Indy 11 goes on the road, knocks off Chicago Fire 1-0. FC Tulsa hangs on, beats Northern Colorado Hailstorm 2-1. Monterey Bay scored first. They end up getting the win over Irvine Zeta at Anissa. And then Vegas Lights and Spokane Velocity went the extra 30. Vegas Lights gets the win 2-1. So you had, you had two of the 11 matches go to PKs. You had 3 additional go the extra 30. So that's half of the matches. 5 of the 11, almost half. So 5 of the 11 matches either go 120 before they get a result or go into PKs before they end up with a result. And then you had 4 1-goal matches, and then you had 2 2-goal matches last night. So the chaos that was not there on Tuesday was there in full on Wednesday. And so 1 o'clock is going to be the draw for the new round of 32. and we will get you there. But we are rooting, hoping, and cheering that Atlanta United and South Georgia Tormenta are in the same group. We are also rooting, ranting, and cheering that the match is going to be played at Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia, because it should. 9 gazillion people should be in Bullock County to watch this match. But we'll see what happens at 1 o'clock, and we'll be here doing a watch-along then at 1 o'clock on the network. So that's your Open Cup. And it was the magic of the Open Cup. And so it was absolutely crazy. So morning, David. Morning, Alex. Morning, Emilio. Morning, Tom. And let's see. Morning, Ropes. It was great to see Ropes last night at the high school match that was suspended by rain and thunder and lightning. Went to Hillgrove last night to see the girls play Pebblebrook, and it was 9-0 early second half, and then Ropes said, "I think I see lightning," and he did. And then you get thunder, and then they removed everybody from the pitch. And Hillgrove got the win on the girls' side. He had to leave at halftime of the boys. But at noon here in the network, separate broadcast here in the network, we're going to do Soccer's in session for the remainder of the playoffs. At noon, we'll go through the playoffs, catch up with coaches, go through your brackets, and let you know what's going on. We'll catch up with coaches and things like that. But, yeah, this is day 3 of 4. We've had the boys and the girls in single A, triple A, 5A, and 7A. 2, 4, and 6 on the girls' side kickoff today. 2, 4, and 6 on the boys' side kickoff tomorrow. Then it all resets at the beginning of next week. So very, very busy stuff across the board when it comes to what we're doing here at SDH. So once again, recap. Show normal this morning. Noon, Soccer's in session live. 1 o'clock, watch along Open Cup round of 32 draw. And we'll walk through that, and we'll see what it looks like. So it's going to be a very, very busy day, really, here on the network. So, Jason coming up in short order, and we'll talk about Open Cup. We'll talk about Atlanta United. We'll talk about anything else that's on his mind as he gets ready to watch practice on a Thursday. And then 10 o'clock, obviously, we'll get into Champions League and all the other things that happened yesterday. Absolutely crazy. Some news before – as we keep going here this morning about stuff going on overseas, you end up with now the Premier League, because of what's going on, unlikely to get that new 5th slot when it comes to Champions League. And so this is from our friends at The Athletic this morning. They're unlikely to get the 5th Champions League spot after Bayern Munich beat Arsenal. And this is from Colin Miller. Premier League on course to miss out on that additional place. 2 nations get awarded the extra 5th place in next season's editions of the Champions League, with the performance of the Italian sides in Europe set to guarantee Serie A gets one of those. Second spot based on coefficients will either go to the Premier League or the Bundesliga. Bundesliga's average marginally ahead of Premier League going into this week's last of 8 ties, but Germany extended that advantage in the rankings with Bayern's victory over Arsenal. Bayern drew in North London before beating Arsenal in the second leg to get to the semifinals. Leverkusen in the driver's seat against West Ham with their 2-goal first leg win. Manchester City out. Have the big highlights, and we'll talk through the PKs coming up later on in the show. Borussia Dortmund they beat Atletico Madrid, and so now they're in. So West Ham and Liverpool, first legs of their quarterfinals. Liverpool, who loses 3-0 against Atalanta. That leaves Aston Villa in Conference League with 3 remaining German clubs. So the numbers are against the Premier League getting that 5th slot. So all that means is that the Bundesliga would be set to clinch the remaining Champions League spot, 5th spot in the Premier League instead, qualifying for next season's Europa. That would be Spurs, and they sit 3 points behind Villa with a game in hand. Right now, coefficients, and this was updated this morning, Italy is 0.8 of a point ahead of Germany. Germany 0.8 of a point ahead of England, and they are 1.5 points ahead of Spain, and France is 0.62, so like 5/8 of a point behind Spain. So big difference between Spain and France trying to catch up with England, but Germany right now looks like they're going to be getting with coefficient that 5th Champions League spot for the next go-round. So when you go from 32 to 36, there's math involved. And so it looks like it's going to be Serie A and the Bundesliga getting those 2 extra spots. and not the Premier League as everyone else was thinking initially. Speaking of which, you end up with the FA Cup, and we got news on West Ham as well. FA Cup has announced that they're scrapping replays from first-round propers. So the FA Cup first-round propers is a part of wholesale changes. Current format, which has no replays from the fifth round onward, has been extended throughout the competition proper, in quotation marks, in light of changes made to the calendar driven by the expanded UEFA competitions, changes which also include all rounds being played on weekends and a rescheduled final before the end of the Premier League season will come into effect from next season and run for a minimum of 6. Premier League has also agreed to pay up to an additional £33 million for grassroots football. Statement from Chief Executive of the FA, Mark Bullingham, saying that the Emirates FA Cup is our biggest asset, 60% of our revenue to invest, critical to secure a long format for the future. New agreement between the FA and the Premier League strengthens the FA Cup, gives the special tournament exclusive weekends and an increasingly busy calendar. So Bullingham comes up with a quote. Richard Masters has come up with a quote that's got a couple of sentences. And he continues, wow, Richard Masters had a big sentence. So revenue from TV coverage sides from the lower reach to the EFL. Non-league get a share of sales and revenue. All right. So Jason's getting ready for practice, getting ready for the weekend, but we cannot start this discussion without discussing what happened. Hashtag Magic of the Cup last night. And that's what we've been spending the first half hour of the show on this morning. And I was trying to liken it to the college basketball tournament where early round you have, like, if one day is calm, the next day is chaos. Yeah. And we had that with Tuesday, Wednesday, where Tuesday was calm in Open Cup, Wednesday was nuts.
Yeah, Wednesday had some interesting moments. I don't know if any are more interesting than the hot mic in Hartford. Wow. To the point that someone grabs the mic and basically like gives the soliloquy on the mic about the decisions that they disagreed with. At least that person did not drop some colorful language. Others did.
Yes.
I'd love to know the individuals who were involved, and I think some of them might have been on the field. I'm not sure. Just absolute chaos. And then we had a goalkeeper sent off, and we weren't sure that they were actually sent off for a while.
Correct.
That was another surprising one. And now we're left with a tournament that is going to be really interesting in how they break up the bracket regionally, because it doesn't really fit well.
No.
And for the first time in really a long time, it's actually tilted to more teams Midwest and West than on the Eastern side. So, where do you put Atlanta, which is the easternmost MLS team in the bracket? Do they go up into the Northeast? Does Pittsburgh get lumped in with Atlanta? Or do they go to Florida? And, then you've got Tormenta really close by. You've got Birmingham really close by. Are they actually matched close by or not? Charleston, who we always see in the Open Cup. I don't know. I don't know how they break it up. And there's going to be people who are big mad about it. And welcome to the magic of the Cup.
Well, but, we have maintained, and Jarrett, before he did his first Irish goodbye this morning, as a public service, and we know how the Open Cup likes to just pay attention to the hue and cry of the soccer fan. You have to have Atlanta United and Tormenta in Paulson Stadium. That is the bottom line. That should be written in stone for the next round.
I don't know if Paulson is wide enough. That's the question. I'd love to find out. I would love to see a spectacle like that. It would be amazing. I'm concerned about the width of the pitch at Paulson. I mean, we've talked about the Open Cup plenty over the years, and I've told my story with it. I've been involved in teams that tried to qualify back in the day and had to go through the USASA regional qualifying. Back then, it was over Memorial Day weekend, and you'd have to go play 4 games in 3 days, and just stupid nonsense, and trying to get through it. And we got into it one time and had a epic night in Charleston with some of the most questionable referee decisions I've ever seen. I love the tournament, and I think it does need to be re-envisioned to a degree because of the calendar, not purely from an MLS perspective, across the board that we all have to deal with. The amateur teams have had to change their approach a little bit, and I think they needed to, away from purely the summer amateur teams that are college players essentially, to more of the year-round amateur teams. And you have a rise in year-round amateur play, and a lot of that's been led by the UPSL. Also, the local regional leagues that have been around for a long time. So the tournament is more of a year-round thing. They need to find the spots in the calendar to make it work. And yes, everybody needs to be involved in it. And if teams, as we talked about earlier this calendar year, if teams at the professional level, and this isn't purely an MLS conversation because there's USL teams that are going to be in this boat too, if they have to, in essence, punt because of injuries, because of schedule congestion, because of lack of form, whatever, okay, they should be able to do that with the roster that they can present to play in the tournament. If that means calling up academy players, if that means playing reserves, they need to be able to do that. I think the one thing that is a bigger picture conversation that will affect the Open Cup is the ability for professional teams, and I know USL can do this, so USL League One can do this. We've seen it in MLS Next Pro as well. Academy players need to be able to play in this tournament across the board without having any effect to their college eligibility. So at MLS level, that needs to be available as well to teams. And if you can do that and you can call up reserves as separate from the short-term agreements that are in place right now in the CBA with the Players Association, if you can work those out to where MLS teams have more flexibility in their roster, which they should, then there should not be a question about their participation in the tournament. And then we get more of these crazy things that we all love about it. We're sickos when it comes to this. And the first rule to me of being a sicko is you have to recognize that you're a sicko.
Of course.
Not everyone is a sicko. And I think you see that. I mean, we watched the game in Hartford and NYC too. There was hardly anybody there. There were other games. There was hardly anybody there. These rounds, for the most part, there have been great stories like Vermont and others. These rounds are for the sickos.
Mm-hmm.
When you get later in the tournament and a trophy is on the horizon, things change a little bit. And for anybody who watches cup competitions in other countries, that's pretty much a normal routine. That's not abnormal that this is how it goes. So get the roster rules in place. Everybody needs to participate, but with the ability to be flexible with your roster. And let's go and grow this thing even more, because last night, those are the nights that the sickos anyway really love about it. And sometimes we can convert the casual fans to sickos and anything can happen.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy last night. I think that our group at SDH, I think we watched at least 9 of the 11 matches last night and left the West Coast to themselves.
Yeah, I couldn't make it through the West Coast. I was really focused on the Tormenta Miami match, the Chattanooga Red Wolves Birmingham match. I was staying on those for the most part, keeping up with Carolina and North Carolina as well. And then once I heard about the hot mic at Hartford, I had to
We all went over and caught up with Hartford
yeah,
and
that
NYC.
was special.
And you get your flashbacks with Romario and Anderson Asayadu, who are now playing for Hartford.
And that's the other thing about the tournament, and those are the things that I love. There was a lot of hype about Sasha Kleshchen and Des Moines, and then more guys being recruited. We saw that in the FA Cup back in the day and in the earlier rounds. I remember Brian McBride playing for a team that I think Budweiser sponsored, that had a bunch of former pros that tried to enter into the early rounds that didn't get very far. It happens. It's a gimmick. That's not going to sustain the tournament. But seeing guys like Romario Williams and Anderson Asayadu that you're like, hey, those are former Atlanta United guys. Cool, I'm going to watch some of this game.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the little hooks that are good. These are guys who are making a living in the game and playing for a team that man, they kind of melted down at the end of it. I can't say I necessarily blame them because that game was all
Whew.
over the map, but yeah, that Hartford team, did they end up with 8 or did they have 9?
It was 9.
9, I think it probably should have been 8.
Well, and when you have CSB event staff surrounding the center ref,
and they're done that.
And so it is, that was definitely with hot mic and chaos and CSB event staff hanging around, folks. Yeah, the magic of the cup last night was off the rails. You're getting ready for, I believe, a practice observation. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Madison is checking out Atlanta United 2 right now. They play Sunday at 3:00. We'll have that on the SDH network on Mixler. And then we'll both head up and watch first team training. We'll speak to Thiago Almada and Gonzalo Pineda today on the first team side of things. And on the second team, I think we're going to talk to Karim Tamimi and perhaps a couple more.
Okay, so I've got that coming up. So I know that I've got maybe 10 more minutes with you before you have to duck back outside. Yeah. Philly's in the rearview mirror. The injuries that took up it takes up a full screen when it comes to TV news. But once again, you got to see why Daniel Rios was picked up to be a part of the organization. Noah Cobb continued to impress, and Luis Abram steps right in. And I believe it was was it 6 blocks by Luis? Some insane number on Sunday with the folks that stepped in. Next man up. It was why these folks were here.
Yeah, Luis was more physically aggressive than I'm used to seeing, which was good. And look, he's trying to get into the Peruvian national team for Copa America, so he's got a lot of motivation right now. Noah Cobb, I think, getting a consistent run of games, we just see him look more and more confident, especially on the ball. Every time out. I thought this was the Caleb Wiley game, and this is the kind of performances that Caleb Wiley can give you. The goals are always a bonus when we're talking about him and we're talking about fullbacks, and I think this is the trajectory that young, exciting fullbacks usually go on. And I think Caleb is actually ahead of the curve in this because and look, Alphonso Davies is kind of the model for this that we've seen in this league, where you think he's going to project as a fullback. You want to get him on the field early as a winger, protect him a little bit. Atlanta did that with Wiley. I think Wiley has improved defensively dramatically. And all those minutes that he got in 2022, and look, not by design, injuries caused it. You had points where you didn't have any fullbacks available outside of Wiley. Those minutes and those mistakes have helped him turn into the player that he is, along with just the natural growth. Because man, he's a brick wall right now. Literally, guys bounce off of him. And when he can, now that he has put that focus and that time and that energy into being a top defender, now you can let him get forward a little bit more when the time is right. And I think when Atlanta becomes a little more unpredictable in terms of, is it always going to be Brooks that is opening things up? I mean, the guy gets double-digit assists. You want him to open things up. Or is at times Brooks going to tuck inside, and is it going to be Caleb who opens things up? But Caleb does it differently. He likes to make that interior run as opposed to the overlapping run. So it's fascinating. You got a lot of weapons, and with Wiley continuing to develop and figuring out, like, one, just how to play 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That was a challenge for him last year. So much energy, and he'd almost like burned too fast. Now he's finishing games, and he's finishing games in a big way. So this was the game for me that Caleb really showed what he can be, and he needs to be. And John Tolkien's a great player. But when we talk about this Olympic team this summer, there should not be a question about who starts at left back.
Right.
And this is no disrespect to John Tolkien. I think you're blessed to have both, and I think you use both at times because both can push higher up the field. But Caleb Wiley is the best young American left back, period. And if he continues on this trajectory, Greg Berhalter is going to have some decisions to make about Copa America and Olympics. I think Caleb's going to go to the Olympics. He needs to. He needs to play there rather than be rotation, get a little bit of game in Copa America. If he continues developing, he might push that trajectory a little bit further.
So you had it pegged last week with your matchup to watch that involved Caleb and Alejandro Bedoya, who looked like he wanted no part of anything after about 35 minutes. He looked like he had just stepped out of the shower and was being run into the ground. Do you have a matchup in your spot shadow for the upcoming game against FC Cincinnati that involves one player on each side? What matchup are you looking forward to? Anticipated matchup, since obviously you don't have the starting 11s, but what anticipated matchup are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I mean, since it's Thursday and the Caleb, well, I can't take all the credit for that because that was 5 minutes into the game that I'm like, wow, okay, one Phillies in their 4-4-2 diamond, which we expected, and Caleb can blow past Bedoya, and he did once. I'm like, that's where the game is, and you got the second goal out of it. So from a broader perspective, I think this game really turns on Lucho Acosta versus the two Atlanta central midfielders in Bartek Slish and Tristan Muyumba. And I don't think it's going to be 1 versus 1. I think at times it's going to need to be Muyumba. At times it's going to need to be Slish dealing with Acosta. Since he's got some issues, and I think you're seeing it. We've talked about this with teams that are very good, and when they look to get better, Columbus in 21 is the example I always think of when after winning MLS Cup in 20 and they improved the roster on paper, they actually regress. Cincinnati might be in the midst of that. They can solve it because they have a lot of talent, but adding Yedlin, adding Miles Robinson, moving the pieces around a little bit. No Junior Moreno, which doesn't sound like, oh, wow, it's going to change everything. It actually is. Alternating between a 3-4-2-1, a 3-5-2, moving Yuya Kubo everywhere. Their shape, their rhythm, their patterns, it's not what it was. And I think it's affecting Acosta more than anyone. Because go back to the last 2 years of Joseph Martinez in Atlanta. One of our big conversations was Joseph dropping. That's where like his game and his career was taking him. He liked dropping to the top of the 18 in build up. He liked dropping in and helping build up the play, which can be a very good weapon. But then your number 10, and for Cincinnati, that's Acosta. For Atlanta, it was Almada, who is comfortable dropping deeper and getting on the ball right in front of the back line and starting the attack there. For Thiago, that's natural. I think he enjoys that. I think it makes him feel alive in the match. Lucho doesn't really enjoy that side of it, and he's a smaller guy. He gets beat up in those areas. He doesn't want to be there. So when Bupenza or Yuya Kubo, who's played as a pseudo 9 at times with this team, when they're in the same space, Acosta's got to go find space. Typically, he's good at doing that out wide. He'll drift out wide. Brad Kazan talked about it on Tuesday. Even when you attack, you got to know where Acosta is because that's who they're going to look to find in the outlet. That space isn't as easy for him to find right now with the new faces because they might have the same dish that they're trying to prepare. I feel like we always go to a food analogy. They might have the same recipe that they're trying to prepare, but they don't have the exact same ingredients. So it comes out a little different. And it's not necessarily vibing right now. So for Atlanta, you've got to make sure that Acosta is dealt with. If you do, since he's not as dangerous going forward, and then I think you can find goals against this team. I really do. I worry about Acosta because it just seems like every time he plays Atlanta, he always kills you.
Yeah. And to your point about finding goals, speaking of goals, it looks like it's going to be Alec Cannon, not Roman Celentano, for another couple of matches.
Evan Loro has gotten a game as well. I would assume it's going to be Alec Cannon. Great opportunity for Alec to play in front of friends and family here in Atlanta, originally from Decatur. Cincy, I want to see what they're made of in these moments because the record over these past couple of games hasn't been great. Can they dial it up in a tough place to play and right the ship a little bit. Or, and I think this is the key for Atlanta, is you got to come out a house of fire against a team that might be questioning itself. And if you do, does Cincinnati have that mental strength? And this is where you go back to a player like Miazga, who runs so hot. Does that become a big negative in times of adversity? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that is something that can help fix it. But in this case, I think you want to test that. You want to come out and put them to the sword early and see how they handle it, because I'm not sure they handle it well.
Broadcast plans for the weekend.
We are back on 92.9 The Game, 6:30, Five Stripes Countdown with Abe Gordon and Garrett Chapman. Kickoff 7:40. You can listen on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass as well. Once you get to the game broadcast, Mike and myself will have that for you. Full-time report will follow. And then Sunday, Atlanta United 2:30 for pregame with you and with Madison. And then I'll have the call starting at just after 3 o'clock. A weekend of Atlanta versus Skyline Chili FC.
There you go. All right, go to practice.
See it.
All right, there's Jason. And Jason is going to go watch practice with the Twos and with Atlanta United. And so, yeah, Jason mentioned, it is literally wall-to-wall with us, with all of the high school coverage that we have. And then you've got Atlanta United. And then we come back on Sunday afternoon with a matchup with FC Cincinnati 2 and Atlanta United 2. So 2:30 for pregame, 3:03, I think it's usually 3 minutes after for the conversations and things like that, and the pregames and the commercial breaks and all that. So Sunday afternoon, up at the Fraction, it is Atlanta United 2, FC Cincinnati 2. That'll be on the network as well. And then it starts all over again. So we do have we are going to be keeping an eye on the Open Cup draw at 1 o'clock. Tormenta is still in Miami, and they're going to be watching from the hotel. I guess they're going to be in a conference room someplace in the hotel, and they'll be keeping an eye on what their pod is going to look like. And a little birdie told us that Paulson is not wide enough. So we could not have, darn it, a game at Paulson Stadium. So we'll find out what's going on at 1 o'clock, and we'll probably have some visitors once they find out their spot and their place as well. So once again, we're going to be going till 11 whenever. Niko's joining us at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk MLS with Niko. Then we got all the other stuff to talk about, news of the day, Champions League, all that kind of stuff coming up here in just a little bit. So that's in the 11 o'clock hour. Noon, we're back to do Soccer's in Session, catching up with coaches, looking at brackets, doing all those kinds of things. Then 1 o'clock is the watch-along involving Open Cup. And we'll watch the Open Cup draw, and we'll get ready for that. We'll get prepped. So get your paper, get your pencils, and get all your stuff squared away, and make sure that you got your highlighters and your brackets and everything all in one place. So here until 11 whenever. Noon until whenever is Soccer's in Session, looking at the high school playoffs. 1 o'clock, the Open Cup watch-along, all day here, all the platforms, all the stuff. So, Wiley, to your point, I think Jason was trying not to yell in a conference room up at the Children's Health Care of Atlanta training ground. So I think that he did eventually raise his voice, but we'll see. But it was great for Jason to join us from a closed-off environment as he's getting ready for practice with the first team and the Twos. Emilio did not know the story. Apparently, a Greek outlet commented that a player had a positive test, followed up with a tweet saying it was an error. So, nope. First time I've heard of it is when you brought it to the table. So, like I said, I don't know. That's news to me. All right. So now that we are in hour number 2, we got news of the morning, and I meant to bring to the table the story of David Moyes, and we also have the Club World Cup news as well. And it looks like, according to our friends at TalkSport, it looks like West Ham might be looking, and tell me if you've heard this before, they might be looking in a different direction other than David Moyes. And so David Moyes is likely to leave the summer. amid links to Thomas Tuchel. And this is from Alex Crook at TalkSport. So increasingly likely is the phraseology about David Moyes leaving West Ham after the season's over. Moyes claimed in December he'd been offered a contract extension, which expires in the summer, but the deal remained unsigned. West Ham board and Moyes himself, both aware of the fractured relationship between the Scot and a vocal majority of the club's supporters, and sporting director Tim Steichen has been actively working on a list of potential successors. TalkSport had reported earlier this year Steichen has a close relationship with Thomas Tuchel, so keep an eye on that. Hammers are 8th, reached the quarterfinals of Europa, where they look to overturn a 2-goal deficit against Bayer Leverkusen on Thursday night. Good luck on that. That was not in the copy. That was me editorializing. He's been in charge for 7 years. First trophy winning the Europa Conference League last year. That's kind of like winning the CIT or the CBI, where if Europa is the NIT, then Europa Conference League would be like the CBI or the CIT in my mind. The CIT or the CBI for European soccer is Europa Conference League. West Ham won it, their first title since 1980. And so we come upon the the cyclical nature of David Moyes. Is he or is he not? Yes, he is. No, he's not. Yes, he's staying. No, he's going. So we're back to that particular end of the cycle, considering that they're 8th and they're probably going to be bumped up by Bayer Leverkusen. So Tuchel set to become available, obviously, because Bayern Munich says that he's out the door. We've known that for quite some time. And so it looks like that it might be, talking in hypotheticals and future possible tense verbs, that you are possibly, probably, maybe going to be without David Moyes. If you are a fan of West Ham starting next season, you'll probably end up getting your wish. And the inside name would probably be Thomas Tuchel, for those of you that believe in juice boxers for this kind of stuff. The new Club World Cup, we have information on that once again from our friends at The Athletic. And it looks like the layout, according to Tom Burrows, will not have Barcelona, Liverpool, or Manchester United. So this is the inaugural expanded 32-team Club World Cup, once again, next summer here in the United States. You won't have a lot of the big names. Barcelona, out of the Champions League. Means that they join the list. Milan, AC Milan, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, Barcelona. Atletico Madrid will play, even though they've gone out in the last 8 of the Champions League to Dortmund, because their coefficient ranking is higher than Barcelona's. They are now the 22nd team to qualify. June 15 through July 13 next year, Club World Cup. And then, by the way, CR38 will be 40 next summer by the time the Club World Cup shows around. And you won't have Al Nassr, and you might get Messi and friends on the guest list. And so you're looking at the Club World Cup with 22 qualifiers so far, expanded tournament coming to this particular part of the planet, and you won't have a lot of the big names. So FIFA expanded it from 12 to 32. Chelsea, Real Madrid, Manchester City qualified automatically as the 3 most recent UEFA Champions League winners in the 4-year cycle. Bayern, PSG, Inter Milan, Porto, Dortmund, Benfica, Juve, Red Bull Salzburg, and now Atletico Madrid, based on the 4-year rankings for the coefficient. CONMEBOL will have 6. Asia will have 4. Africa 4. CONCACAF 4. Oceania will have 1 entrant, and the U.S. will get 1 more because they are the host nation. These will qualify either as winners of their Confederations Premier League Cup competition between 21 and 24, or through their club rankings during that same period. Teams from the regions to have already booked their places: Palmeiras, Flamengo, Fluminense, Al Ahly, Wydad Casablanca, Al Hilal, Urawa Red Diamonds. They play in Atlanta. That's a certain sense of irony. Monterrey, León, Sounders, Auckland City. 8 groups of 4, 3 games each before single leg knockouts. So that's what you're getting with the Club World Cup. You obviously won't have big names, because just because you're a big name doesn't mean that you're doing well enough in your coefficient to get a spot. So there you go. Club World Cup. Speaking of which, Manchester City. We mentioned Manchester City. And they are not into any. Yes. Yeah, that was why Tom Red Diamonds, that was the team that was in for GG as well. Yes. And so that's why I figured that the irony, if you had Urawa Red Diamonds playing in Atlanta, hashtag irony. So you would have something like that. You had, with all of the conversations that we've got going on, all of the stuff involving the penalty kick and just the penalties from yesterday, which were absolutely crazy. And it appears that you have Manchester City fans. They think that one of their own wrecked this particular moment from yesterday. Courtesy of our friends at Paramount Plus and UEFA, this moment, Manchester City fans, and you can start the black helicopters, I guess, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Once again, courtesy of our friends at Paramount Plus and UEFA, this moment, Manchester City fans have circled, and they're like, what is going on with our own?
And Bernardo Silva has just lifted that into the goalkeeper's hands. Presumably assuming he would dive, and he didn't. Well, he's done his homework. Lunin, he knew. It's brave. It's so brave from Lunin to stand. It's the hardest thing as a goalkeeper.
So Andre Lunin stands in place. Bernardo Silva basically just launches it forward straight. Initially, since I was in the car when it happened, I thought it was a Panenka, but it was an actual shot. Lunin just stood there. So Bernardo Silva, with the opportunity to send Manchester United further ahead after the Luka Modric miss, hits it right at Lunin, and everybody was missing, and it ends up with our friends from our friends from Real Madrid going forward and seeing that they're going to be in the next rounds. But Manchester City fans, they're mad. They're beyond mad because they think that one of their own has spoiled it for everybody else. And so the champs went crashing out. And so, of course, what does my cell phone do but lock up? So I've got to refine the story. And by the way, no kidding that the app isn't working. That reminds me, as I filibuster for a second, are any of you having problems filing 280 character sentences and thoughts on your mobile devices? I'm just asking, because when I try and file the morning update to say that we're on the air and here's the guest list, it fails to send it. And so I was confused. And so I'm trying to figure out if it's my phone, which it may very well be. But we'll see what's going on. We'll get to breaking news coming up in just a sec when it comes to Open Cup. So Manchester City fans furious, one of their own forced Bernardo Silva to wait before his failed penalty in the Real Madrid defeat. So Bernardo Silva launched it at Lunin before Mateo Kovacic also failed to convert. But rather than criticize Silva, City fans have been left pointing the finger at someone behind the net. With Pep Guardiola's side leading the shootout, once again, this is our friends at TalkSport. Pep Guardiola's side leading the shootout after Modric's miss. Silva's penalty was delayed by a City fan who held on to the ball in the stands. He stood there for 40 seconds, apparently. And so then eventually, Silva has to go over, jog to the crowd, get the ball, and go back. So literally, Manchester City fans are yelling at them at their own because they needed the ball back. Also on the board in that discussion involving this particular moment, it was. Like I said, I was in the car, and I initially thought, just because of how it was being described on radio, that it was a Panenka, but it was a straight up shot. And what folks did a little digging and remembered that Kepa had time at Chelsea. And so Kepa was the expert intel for Leeuwin when it came to Manchester City and their penalty takers and directions that they go. Kepa was interviewed, and he said that we knew that 3 of the shooters have a tendency to go down the middle, one of them being Bernardo Silva. So Kepa gave the intel to Leeuwin, and Kepa also apparently they had still cameras looking at him, and apparently he was giving Leeuwin hints as to who's going where, and Rudiger was also helping out in this whole discussion. So the expert intel of Kepa and Rudiger against Manchester City helped out as well. And yes, the icing of Silva with the launching of the ball in the stands and waiting an extra 40 seconds, those kinds of things. It was out there. It's definitely out there. And so you have them blaming their own, which traditionally happens in these situations. Don't ask me why, but you end up with this kind of stuff. All right. The groups, the draw is out. The draw is out in Open Cup. And so I am trying to piece together this, as we're sitting here and going, okay, the news in and of itself, and you have the divisions officially out, and they're being posted and pinned. But the Open Cup in and of itself, once again, 1:00, we're going to have a watch along. So draw is out, and so that means that we end up doing this. Sources close to SDH say that the draw is out. The division that is closest to us here in the footprint, that is right in the footprint, the 4 teams in the Alonso division: Tormenta, Atlanta United, the Independents in Charlotte, and the Charleston Battery. And Tormenta and Charlotte, because they are both USL League One, cannot play each other in this round in this division. So that means out of the blocks, Atlanta is either going to play Tormenta or Charleston. So we're down to 2. At least we got that figured out. So the Alonso division has Tormenta, Atlanta United, Charlotte, and Charleston. Tormenta and Charlotte, because they are both USL League One, cannot play each other. We are that much closer to figuring it out. So it's a 50-50 shot that Atlanta United play South Georgia Tormenta somewhere. Once again, 1:00, watch along, and we'll go through all of it. But the draw with the divisions is out. And so we know that we're that much closer, but sources close to the network say that Paulson is not wide enough, so it could not. Well, maybe they play 5 aside. Maybe they play 7 aside. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they do that to play it at Paulson Stadium. I think that'd be epic. Now that we've completely and totally just disappointed Jarrett with the idea of not being able to play at Paulson Stadium. But once again, draws out. Atlanta United is in the Alonso division with Tormenta, Charlotte Independents, Charleston Battery. Atlanta's going to either play the Battery or Tormenta. One of the two. You got to break up Tormenta and Charlotte Independents. Or they could play Charlotte. So so Tormenta and Charlotte can't play. So you've got to play either, if you're Atlanta, you're playing either Tormenta, Charlotte, or Charleston, and Tormenta and Charlotte cannot play each other. So that's where you are. But 1:00 watch along here on the network, and we will get everybody through their paces, and we'll let you know what's going on with the draw and how it all is all going to lay out. So we got that. But yeah, so you have Manchester City fans blaming their own for what happened yesterday. And so Derek says that this happened to him a couple times this week. Okay, good. because I was trying to figure it out. Like literally, what I'll do around 8:05. At 8:05, I'll try to post an update. Hey, we're coming on 9:05 like we always do, like we've been doing for 7+ years. But it's like failed to send, and then it's like 9 o'clock, and there's no interaction. I'm like, what's going on? So I just wanted to make sure that I was not by myself. I would have accepted that I'm by myself in this and trying to fight what's going on. But I like I said, I was just trying to figure out if I was by myself and if technology was yelling at me, or if I was just awful with it and that kind of a thing. So okay, so I just wanted to make sure that that everything was in the right direction and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm not alone in this. That's good to know. But just double checking. All right, Bartman-esque with Alex. Yeah. Emilio, Tormenta has the new stadium and it's too small. Well, I mean, it was just what you want, Emilio, in a situation like this, their new stadium is their new stadium. I mean, it's there. If you want to host, I don't know if we're getting into the point of the tournament where you have to have minimum standards for attendance, for seats and that kind of a thing. I don't know if we're there yet. Might be the next round. But at some point, you get to the minimum specifications. You've got to have a field that is regulation size, obviously. And I know that we kind of sit here and hope against hope sometimes that, you'd like to have this kind of a spectacle if it was to come to pass. I mean, Atlanta United could go to American Legion and they could end up playing Charlotte Independence. And Tormenta could in turn end up playing Charleston Battery, old foes in the Open Cup tournament. So you could have something that's simple where, you're going to Patriots Point or you're going to American Legion Memorial Stadium in Charlotte. And those have, Patriots Point, as Dell will tell you, that, it's not, 10,000 folks. It's not 10,000. So I think it's the next round when you're getting into specifications and things like that. But it's somewhere down the road. I don't think it's this go around, but you've got to have a field wide enough. You can't be like, this is why NYCFC, knock on wood, plays at St. John's, because it's turf and it's a regulation size field. They don't play at Yankee Stadium and they don't play, Citi Field or what have you. So it's regulation field, and that instantly eliminates Paulson Stadium. Against hope that it was regulation and you could have 20,000 people in there for Atlanta United and South Georgia Tormenta. But yeah, the size, the width of and the surface area of the field at Paulson Stadium does not fit the idea of a South Georgia Tormenta home match. So, like I said, it was worth yelling at the high heavens about and trying to sit here and say, what we would really like for this kind of a spectacle is X, And unfortunately, first off, field's not wide enough, surface area doesn't fit, you're DQ'd, you're out the door. Turner time was not in the initial versions. No, it was not. No, we just decided we figured we would have an homage to Turner time, and to be perfectly honest, that extra 5 minutes really helps out in preparation. It really does to get everything all lined up, and especially for me, who I'm perpetually 10 minutes late to everything anyway. So 9:05 helps me out because I'm only 5 minutes late or 5 minutes early if I get on at 9:05. But yeah, I'm always 10 minutes late to everything. So no, the initial show was 9 to 11 and 9 to whenever, but yeah, so yeah, Turner time was not in the initial until I think we were like third season. I think that's when we went to Turner time and went 9:05. No, Tormenta's field is fine. Tormenta's regulation capacity, like I said, I don't think capacity matters right now. So we'll see what it looks like. But yeah, getting back to Champions League, the intel of Kepa and Rudiger against Manchester City helped out, but you also had folks holding on to balls and sending balls into the stands and having to go chase things yourself. Your rhythm is broken and those kinds of things. So Real Madrid makes it in through the next round. Niko Moneda coming in probably about 15 minutes. So like I said, we're waiting on the groups. and we will let you know the others when we know them. But like I said, the schedule for the round of 32 is May 7 and 8, and that draw comes up at 1 o'clock. So once again, busy day here on the network. Like I said, after we're done, then at noon, it's Soccer's in session. We catch up with high school coaches and get ready for the high school season. We're in the playoffs. We'll go through the brackets, catch up with Will Homskus. I know that we're going to catch up with him at Lincoln County at 12:05 and find out what it's like for Will to be into the Sweet 16 for the first time. So very, very cool stuff for the Lady Devils of Lincoln County out there in Lincolnton. So very, very cool stuff there. Trying to chase and see if I'm missing anything as Bolo's come across my desk, and trying to sit here and say, oh, got this. Nope, did that. News and gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Like I said, we're also waiting for the other groups, the other divisions to be announced when it comes to the round of 32. But yeah, with the Alonzo division involves those 4. Involving South Georgia Tormenta. So we're waiting on the other 7 divisions, and when those get posted, we will let you know. Gossip, rumor, innuendo, news, all the other stuff, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, all those kinds of things. We mentioned how the FA Cup is scrapping the whole thing with replays, and it looks like the Premier League winter break is out the door as well. So according to the summer break then becomes longer with the new schedule. So the FA, with the negotiations with the Premier League, I said we mentioned the long quote from Mark Bullingham, and you end up with cup replays, all this kind of stuff. We mentioned the extra contributions. The Premier League is shifting their calendar to ensure league matches are no longer scheduled at the same time as the FA Cup 5th round and quarterfinal matches. The 4th round will be played out over 6 days from Friday to Wednesday. So you almost have a festive fixtures FA style kind of a thing to allow fans to watch consecutive days of FA Cup football, according to the FA. Cup final moved from their traditional position on the weekend after the last match of the Premier League season to the weekend of the penultimate round of fixtures. FA has agreed Cup final will be played on the Saturday. No Premier League matches on that day or the preceding Friday. However, you do get a full round taking place on Sunday. Staggered winter break around the 4th round also comes to an end. FA says that change enables a later start to the league season, which means an extended summer break. So you have all of that going on with the Premier League. So the Premier League and the FA get together, and they're blowing up replays in the FA Cup. They are giving longer summer breaks. They're condensing the schedules. They're helping each other out to where you don't have the chaos that is attached. So, thank you know what for making sure that does happen. So it's great that they're doing this. And I'm sure that a lot of the clubs in the Premier League are going, it's about blanking time, because you'll get moments where you'll have a team in the FA Cup and they've got fixture congestion and all these kinds of things, and they're trying to chase after multiple trophies. And if they're in the Gummy Bear Cup, you're going to see them just roast that roster like Liverpool did when Jurgen Klopp played all the kids and he had his academy manager in charge on the touchline. And I think they ended up winning that match, and so they ended up staying in the Gummy Bear Cup for another round or two. But yeah, Jurgen Klopp played the kids, kind of like what we were getting into the discussion with Jason with the Open Cup this morning. But it is, but it's about time. It is about time to fix the schedule and get all this stuff kind of squared away. The Bernardo Silva penalty demanded one question: what was he thinking? That's who he is. That's what he does. That's what he does. I mean, he'll go down the middle, and it was pointed out that he goes down the middle. So the rhetorical question is more based on fact and idea than really anything else. It's like, this is the backup. This is what he does. This is his dossier when it comes to kicks. He'll go down the middle, and for Kepa to pass along however he passed it along, stay, don't move. That's what happens. You stay, you make a save, you wait 40 seconds for a ball. All these things that play into it. They played into it. Real Madrid ended up moving on, and Manchester City will be not chasing after a treble this year. So you got that going on as well this morning. So no trouble for Manchester City fans, and I know that a lot of you who are not Manchester City fans are completely and totally just heartbroken over the whole thing. We mentioned the Premier League. It looks like clubs may need an independent regulator approval for the games for the games that they have over here in the States. It looks like, according to Adam Crafton at The Athletic, you could require approval from the government-approved independent regulator if they wish to play home matches abroad due to a clause inserted into a football governance bill that was introduced to Parliament. Possibility of taking one-off fixtures has increased after FIFA was dropped from the lawsuit by Relevant, who 6 years ago, remember, wanted to do Girona and Barca in Miami. 6 years ago. 5-year court battle has Relevant, who was founded by Stephen Ross, who owns the Miami Dolphins, according to Crafton, essentially accused FIFA of acting as a monopoly and preventing fair competition. FIFA says domestic games ought to be played in their home territories. FIFA and Relevant settled on the case this past week, with FIFA looking that they can, we'll revisit the policy. Settled without prejudice, meaning that Relevant served the right to reopen their litigation if FIFA doesn't come up with a satisfactory reconsideration of the position. So FIFA and Relevant, they come to the table at the big meeting room with the glass windows all around it, shut the door. They come up with an agreement. They walk out of the room. But if everybody if Relevant keeps an eye on FIFA and Relevant doesn't like what FIFA is doing, then Relevant can re-sue FIFA and open up the case all over again. So now what FIFA is doing is it's states' rights, leaving it to the individual leagues, feds, and confederations on their own. Basically, Gianni Infantino says, today I feel states' rights. Leagues, feds, and confederations themselves now get to figure it out with countries and whether or not they want to do this kind of a thing. 2008, the Premier League wanted to add another round of fixtures. It would have been the worldwide thing. Supporters and media wigged out, and so the Premier League was like, oh, sorry, we won't do it. So you have British politicians who are now wanting to have their say, especially with the Super League discussions that were there. And so now you've got to look in the football governance bill that is now in the British Parliament and sit there and go, okay, who's the independent regulator and who do we need to talk to? Bill doesn't specify whether the approval is only for domestic matches. And if UEFA wanted to take any of the competitions outside of European borders, you could add that to it too. Might be a bit of a workaround, according to Crafton, but we'll see. Bill still has to pass through Parliament, though, to come into effect. But we'll see. So Michael is like, FA Cup finals the same weekend as the final weekend of the penultimate, week before. Not this season, but next. Starting next year is when the calendar changes. It would be the penultimate. So the next to last weekend. They pull the FA Cup final into the schedule of what we would think of as the Premier League window. And they would have the FA Cup final on the Saturday of the next to last week of the regular season next year. So it would be spring of 25. Spring of 25, FA Cup final is put now on the next to last weekend. No other games on that Saturday or the Friday before. But you have 10 matches on Sunday, and then everything's back to normal, and then the season goes, and then the season finishes. So, yeah, spring of 25, that's when this changes, where you won't have replays, schedule's more amenable, longer summer window for the players, to have vacations, those kinds of things. So, yeah. 19th is the final weekend. FA Cup Finals the 25th. And so next season it flips. Next to last weekend of regular season ends, and then vacation for everybody. So there you go. So everything will change coming up in a year's time now that the FA and everyone has agreed to the whole thing. We are all agreed. We're all happy. We're going to say a lot of things that take up a lot of paragraphs, and you end up with all that. So that's where you are. So technically, as we wait on the news from the U.S. Soccer about the Open Cup, like I said, the groups are apparently out. And we were given the division. So the Alonso division is out. We're waiting on the other 7. Like I said, we'll go through the watch along at 1 o'clock, and we will peruse it all in the round of 32. It's not the 4th round. It's the round of 32. So that's coming up a little later as we roll through everything here on Open Cup today. And high school's coming up at noon. So we're going to do soccer is in session. And we're going to talk to coaches and get you brackets and get you squared away for day 3 of round 1 when it comes to the playoffs in high school. A lot of stuff's going on. You've had some 4s beat some 1s early on. So it's been a very, very interesting first round of the playoffs in the first 2 days. You do have some chalk. You do have some chalk, but there have been some other instances where some 4s beat some 1s, and you find out what group stage play is looking at in the brackets, and what the regions actually lay themselves out for, and which teams like to test themselves with non-region competition, knowing that the region is going to be what it is. So now we'll get into all of that, and we'll get into that at noon. We'll catch up with coaches, roll through brackets, all that kind of stuff. So you have all of the writers, or most of the writers, sitting there saying that City lost their nerve, all these kinds of things when it came to the activity yesterday in Champions League. You're looking at Europa League today, and with Europa League today, obviously we'll get into juice boxes here. Like I said, gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, all that kind of stuff. So in the Europa League today, it is Roma, a home dog against AC Milan. These are all at 3 o'clock. And this is to just win the match, not win the tie. Atalanta, big underdog at home against Liverpool, but they also have a large advantage. Liverpool's a minus 169. Marseille, favored at home against Benfica at a plus 140. West Ham, big underdog at home. Bayer Leverkusen, a minus 114. And West Ham is a plus 298, so basically a plus 300 to even win the day against Leverkusen. 12:45, you've got 2 Europa Conference League matches. Fiorentina, big favorite against Victoria Pilsen. Lille favored at home slightly against Aston Villa. And Unai Emery has warned Emi Martinez about the Lille environment and is basically telling Emi Martinez to cool it. Don't respond to it, because it can get pretty hectic and pretty heavy. And so he's warned Emi Martinez, just cool it for today. Just do your job. Everything's fine. Don't do anything to push any buttons. 3 o'clock are the other 2 matchups in Conference League. Fenerbahce, big favorite at home against Olympiacos, who's north of plus 400. And PAOK Salonika is a minus 118, hosting Club Brugge at a plus 295. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. And today it is Barcelona, Manchester City held talks with the representatives of RB Leipzig's midfielder Dani Olmo. Liverpool could move for Mohamed Kudus from West Ham if Salah leaves. Chelsea, Barcelona, among several European clubs considering a move for Roma striker Paulo Dybala. Shakhtar expect to lose Georgi Sudikov this summer. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, and United all interested. Rafa Marquez, one of the candidates to succeed Xavi when he steps down at Barcelona at the end of the year. Bayern and Spurs have joined Manchester United in considering a move for Everton's Jarrett Branthwaite. Bayern Munich monitoring the progress of midfielder Archie Gray, 18, yet to make any contact with Leeds. That's from Florian Plettenberg at Sky Germany. Saudi pro clubs are interested in Senegal midfielder Idrissa Gueye, unlikely to be offered a new contract by Everton when his deal expires at the end of the year. Newcastle, Liverpool, keen on Sporting Lisbon's defender Ousmane Diomande, who's also wanted by Chelsea. Also, it is Sean Dyche's job at Everton. Manager is not under threat despite their poor form. It's not really poor form. It's more the point deductions. They're not doing that poorly. So that was a poorly worded bolo. Forest want more than £20 million for defender Murillo amid interest from Liverpool, Chelsea, United, and PSG. And Manchester United could offer Mason Greenwood as part of a deal to sign Gleison Bremer from Juve. That's from our friends at Gazzetta dello Sport. Now, what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it. Once again, if you are a true degenerate and you're checking into things in the obscure leagues around the planet, you can get BN, all the BNs, which means you get Africa, Middle East, North Africa, you get South America, you get France, Gold TV for the fans, Tay, Nuestra Tela, Liga 1 Max, Liga 1 Max, Liga 1 Pro. All of those, you can get that at Fnatis, ftz.co/soccer down here. And it is with, you can do that. Helps out the network, helps out this network, helps out that network, and it adds to your true degenerate nature of what's going on when it comes to all of the games, all the stuff all around. So today, very light schedule, by the way. UEFA Women's Champions League at 1:45 on DAZN USA. Paramount Plus has the one match in the Copa de la Liga at 8:30 with Lanús and Union Santa Fe. Now, last half hour of the show. We always do this on Thursdays. Time to bring the man in. We find out what the mug is. We find out what his cup of coffee is. We find out what's going on. And we bring in Niko Moreno. Niko, what is the cup of coffee? And what's the mug? And which cup of coffee are you on, sir?
But the Ray Green mug today, coming up nice right there. And this is cup number 2, my man. We're trying to get it going, trying to fuel the train here. See if we get moving. I'm like that train just getting started. We're just starting to rotate. So, yes, sir. Just happy to be here. Excited that we did well in the juice boxes last week, gentlemen. Yes. I got a little video that I've not been able to put out, but I think we were 4 or 5 in our picks last week. It was pretty good. We hit on Miami. We hit on a couple of draws in Columbus, RSL, as well as LA and Timbers. We even hit on the goals on the LA Galaxy as well. So we did good, guys. We did good.
Yep, and so we will be getting into that as we go here. But as you mentioned, how things were last week in Major League Soccer. Let's go with your headlines. What are some of your headlines from the matches from last week, and we'll go through your main thoughts, and then we'll trickle into all the other stuff.
Well, I mean, right off the bat, Montreal just put an upset on Cincinnati. First game at home for Montreal after a 6-game road trip, I believe. They played well. Unfortunately, Kokaro gets hurt, but Joseph Martinez comes in. He puts one in the back of the net. I thought Bryce Duke was fantastic. Brilliant game by Bryce Duke. Great goal by Lassiter. I mean, the way he picks up his head, finds the goal, just strikes it. Cincinnati's in some trouble. That could also be a headline. You know, the offense just needs some help. They didn't properly replace Brandon Vasquez. They got Kubo, that he's just the handyman and just does a little bit of everything for that team. Playing up there, he's not a striker. That's not where you want him. Yes, he scored. I get it. He scored. Yes. That does not mean that he should be up there, people. That's just all I'm saying. The LAFC game was interesting with Portland. I think LAFC, for as much as I had expectations and I had them first in the West, they haven't played like their usual selves. And that was a tough game. We knew that going into it. But I feel like LAFC is going to have to wait for their big French man to come in and do some wonders up top, because they definitely have had some problems finishing in front of goal. I know that Cherundolo was ripping his hair out there at the last play of the game because he saw or he didn't see a foul. The foul gets called Tillman puts it in the back of the net. That could have been the game winner. So that was interesting. In other big headlines for last week, I think that's about everything that really stood out. I guess we could go with Charlotte, getting a big win, playing some direct ball at home, fantastic atmosphere. They're an intriguing team. I like Vargas. I like some of the things they're doing. Copetti, I thought he had a pretty decent game, but a lot of people expect him to not be here in the summer. So how is that going to play out with, maybe he places himself into the conversation to a new coach. So I think Charlotte's been interesting as well. Maybe a little bit of a surprise for me, for sure.
Let's talk LAFC for a second.
All right.
And LAFC, honestly, if you want to go all the way back to CONCACAF last year, I don't know what it was, but coming out of that tournament, it seems like LAFC, in addition to not scoring any goals, or not as many as they've been in a prolific way in years past, where it was just electric and everything's tilted toward a 32-52, and going to BMO is unnerving for folks. Ever since CONCACAF Champions League last year to now, it has been a very different LAFC team. It has been one that is having trouble rolling the engine over. You turn the key, and there are times when the engine doesn't start, evidenced by this year. And then defensively, you had Chiellini, who is 74 years old, as marshaling your back line. And it seems like they've been scuffling for almost a full season now, a full calendar year now. It's just that this LAFC team is not the one that we were used to seeing. And it seems like it's a bunch of different reasons, and you can't really put your foot down to stop one, because then, if you're putting your foot down on the garden hose to try to stop the water from going out all over the place, then everything builds up and you end up with rips in the hose and the water goes elsewhere. It's an odd thing to look at. It's like Steve Cherundolo stopped coaching one way coming out of CONCACAF 12 months ago, and now it's entirely different. Am I off here?
No, I think you're right, especially in the style of play. They were a team that used to be more possession-based, more in control. It seems like they play against the ball now. They play more counter play. They allow the other team to have some possession. And I think it's all designed, unfortunately, for those who don't like this sort of soccer. I think that Cherundolo has decided that he's going to be effective. He's going to play counter-attacking ball. And I feel like as an organization, they've realized that in MLS, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And all of their big acquisitions and the way they structured their roster kind of goes that route. They got older young players. They're talented prospects for the future now. And then they're bringing in some big guns in the summer. They're allowing this team to give you what they have, right? And I'm not sure if the whole Carlos Vela rule will eventually come into play and they'll be able to keep some of these big name players. But at the end of the day is the fact that this LAFC squad just feels comfortable not playing brilliant soccer to start of the season and maybe push it out in the second part of the MLS calendar. In general. So I think it's all by design. I really don't think they're surprised at all that the team with this short of a roster in terms of numbers of players is kind of struggling a little bit.
And it just seems now that the momentum in Los Angeles has shifted back to LAG, because they're the ones scoring all the goals now. And, when you've got your protein power pack, your P3 of Paintsel, Peck, and Puig,
yep,
that is there now. It seems like the offensive momentum has shifted back to Carson and has gone away from BMO Field. But, of course, when you drop $19 million on two guys, that better be the way that it's going to be, right?
Absolutely. And another part of that is because two of the guys that were coming into this season with high expectations haven't quite done it. And I'm talking about Dennis Bouanga, who obviously everything he did last season. Maybe someone should have thought that it wasn't sustainable and that it was a phenomenal season that he might never be again. And then Oliveira, I thought that he was going to really take a next step forward. He was going to be that guy on the right wing side that was going to be a difference maker and provide you some of the things that Cherundolo needs from those wide players to help out Bogut's playing that false nine type of position. So I think that's part of it. And then on LA Galaxy side, it's just been the opposite. They just hit the lotto on the guys that they brought in, right? And now Ricky, he's doing phenomenal things. He might be the best through ball passer. Oh, no, second, because we got Lionel. So, yes, in MLS, he could be the second best through ball player in MLS in general. And having those weapons just puts it all together. So what's not working for the LAFC this season, it is working for Galaxy.
When it comes to, yesterday we talked hot seats. And we were trying to figure out, who's in the hot seat. And yeah, I know we've only played a quarter of the season, if that, 20% of the season. And we were looking at 5 guys. And as much as we'd like to have lunch at 5 guys, that was not what we were talking about. It looked like it was 5 guys on the board that are right now in the crosshairs. And I think that from my perspective, I was looking at guys in a different order than a lot of other folks. Okay. Obviously, you're looking at Lucci in San Jose, and this is in no order before we get into specifics. You're looking at Lucci in San Jose. You're looking at Niko Estevez in Dallas. You've got 1 win on the board in your first 7. San Jose's 1-7 after their first 8 and has, I think, the worst defense right now in Major League Soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're looking at Caleb Porter in New England. You're 1-5-1 after your first 7. You're looking at Nick Cushing, who won recently, so now he's at 8 points, and so he is no longer next to last. He's 12th out of 15. And then Gary Smith in Nashville. Those were the 5. But I had Niko. I had Estevez kind of toward the front of the line, but I had Lucci toward the back because the owner of San Jose, John Fisher, he's focused on other things right now. He's more focused on Oakland and moving to Sacramento and getting the A's a ballpark and looking forward to Aaron Judge coming by and playing his team in a AAA ballpark. He's got other priorities. He may not be focused on Lucci in San Jose, and it might be just, Lucci, you got what you got till the summer window, deal with it, handle it, and I got other things I'm focused on. So that was why I didn't have Lucci as my number 1, even though numbers would dictate when you're 1-7, you've only scored 10 in your first 8, and you're giving up 2.5 goals a match. I would think most of the time you'd sit there and go, okay, front of the line. But because of everything else going on with the owner, I think Lucci's further back in the grid.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I would put Lucci at the back of that list. I'm surprised you don't have Josh Wolf in there. And look, I get that he's still there, and there hasn't been a decision made on him, regardless of multiple seasons already not performing at the level that they started when the franchise got into this league. So, in general, I think that in San Jose, the problem is the front office, and we all know this. This is no secret. Ever since Almeida was there, we knew that was the problem, and it didn't matter. It still doesn't matter who's going to be there if there's not going to be resources brought into this team. It's hard to ask anything else of Lucci. Lucci is a fantastic coach, someone that develops player at a great rate, that understands this league. I have nothing but good things to say about Lucci Gonzalez as a coach. And I do believe that the owner understands that he's the issue, and it's hard to ask anything more of Lucci Gonzalez. I think Caleb Porter should be hired there simply because this could be one of those situations where maybe I realized that I hired the wrong guy for the job, and it's just not fitting in with what I have. And it'd be really hard for me to just decimize this roster and tear it all apart and start from the very beginning, because it's not working with. I understand that this team doesn't have the most quality guys, and whoever decided to in an article say that they're one of the best teams in MLS should never write that ever again, because this roster is terrible.
Where was this?
Yeah, in the Athletic, somebody said that they were one of the best teams in MLS when they were talking about CCL play. But anyways, this roster is just not great. I mean, it's got some players, it's got some pieces. Yes, I like Chancala. Yes, we love the Heels, and there are definitely pieces there, but it's just not a full balanced roster. So when the quality, talent, the best players in the team are still not performing at their level, I think that Caleb could be one of those guys that are getting ready to head out the door. And then Niko Steves just has really regressed, and it's heavily. And look, I understand that there's injuries, and that's part of the reason why he probably has a job. No Velasco, no Ferreira. I mean, I understand that is going to handicap your play, but I feel like there hasn't been enough in finding that identity and wanting to really cement your soccer module. I just don't see it for Niko Steves.
When you look at the other results from the past weekend, and I mean, you're looking at. I'm sure that if I'm waiting for the moment when Peter Vermes just decides that he's completely and totally just had it with his guys. I mean, we know that Peter is never one to bite his tongue, but I would think that after yet another week where you're having a result that you have in a massive building at Arrowhead, where you had over 60,000 folks, and you're going up against Messi and friends, and Messi and friends are there, and you're all over it. You end up with a 1-0 lead. Eric Tommy has found his scoring shoes. Tommy scores to make it 1-0. Gomez scores to tie it. Messi scores to make it 2-1. Tommy scores again to tie it, and then Suarez 13 minutes later. If I'm Peter Vermes, I'm pulling out what's left of my hair because of the defense that's there, not being able to keep a lead, giving up 3 to Messi and friends in front of 60,000. I'm just waiting for the point when Peter Vermes is just driven totally stark raving bananas over what's going on with his club this year.
I really don't know, man. I have nothing but the utmost respect for a legend as a coach that he is, for U.S. soccer, for MLS in general. I mean, I tip my hat to him. But looking at what some of his comments, his statements after the game, he just seemed complacent with the result. He said several times that his team played well, that there were a couple of mistakes, and even before the game, he talked about with Messi. He kind of praised him a little too much for my liking. Yeah. And even after the game, he seemed like he was just happy to say, hey, you know what? It was messy. And I just don't agree with that sort of mentality. And I don't expect somebody to go out here and disrespect Messi in any way. I just think that's the guy you're playing against. That is the guy that you got to kind of reflect to your players that look, I get Messi, but he's just another guy today. I mean, we're going to bother him. We're going to not allow him space. We're going to treat him like anybody else. We're going to make sure that he feels like he's got to work hard for what he's doing. But they just seemed like there was too much respect for Messi in that game, and then afterwards by Peter Vermes, some of the things he said. So maybe he's just comfortable with the way things are, and the team has played better. In some places, I feel like defensively they still have some things to work out, but I just kind of feel like he's complacent. But specifically talking about this game, I just thought that there was too much room given to Lionel Messi, and maybe it's because Patrick Mahomes shook hands with the GOAT and told him to go have fun out there, and Luis Suarez was strolling to the top of the box without somebody tugging on his shirt, pulling him, breathing down his neck. You just saw Monterrey do what they did and give you kind of a blueprint on how you handle these type of players. And Peter Vermes didn't follow that at all. So maybe he's just complacent with the way things are going. So I see him comfortable. After the game, I was with you. Maybe I was thinking, look, he's going to lose his mind. He didn't seem like he was losing his mind. He just seemed like he understood it was Inter Miami and let's move on to the next game. And I just don't think that that's the way. That's not the mentality. That's not the message you want to send to your locker room.
And so we'll see what that message is, because it is that time with Niko Moreno, our friend from Pulso Sports on the Soccer Bar, where we go to play cliffhanger. And we see if Niko can match the prowess that he had with the juice boxes last week. And we will see what Niko thinks about the action this week. All right. So it starts off. I mean, I guess they do it alphabetically with the home clubs, the way that it's lit. I finally figured it out after all these years. The website that we use for our reference in the composite, they list the home team. If the kickoff times are the same, the home teams are listed alphabetically. I'm like, oh. So then that means that Atlanta United's the first match we talk about, hosting FC Cincinnati at home. And Atlanta United's a plus 117 on the win. Cincinnati, who lost last time out, as you mentioned, to Montreal, is a plus 211 on the road. Your draw is a plus 257 in the composite. What say you, Niko Moreno?
That's another game that could strike you as, you know what, Atlanta is at home. Cincinnati is coming off of a bad result. I just talked about the struggles for Cincinnati up top, but Atlanta, man, that last game against Philadelphia, they show you a little bit about sometimes they have such a hard time managing games and without some of those star players. I understand in the back and in the front, not the starters that you wanted. No Silva. I mean, there was a lot going on there, but I think this game calls for a draw. Cincinnati is going to want to get a result at Atlanta. They're going to feel comfortable by getting a result. They're not going to make it easy for Atlanta to find those spaces behind to get in transition. They're going to overpopulate the midfield. I could see this as a 1-1 draw that maybe Atlanta fans are going to be very upset to see because they want to see this team win. But I feel like that's the result that's going to come out of this one.
We're still waiting to find out what the injury situation is. 5 players were out last week, including Gigi, Jamal, Tiare, Shande Silva. Derek Williams still going to be out for another couple of weeks. Stian Gregerson, their big center back, was at the practice this week, so we don't know what the situation is. Is Daniel Rios going to start again? Is Yakamaki still going to be dealing with the bone bruise? And Noah Cobb and Luis Abram were a good pairing last week defensively for Atlanta United, but we'll find out what it looks like coming up on discussion on Friday, and then again when the list comes out on Saturday. CF Montreal continues their crush of home matches. They're a slight favorite at home against the Purple team at a plus 152. Crew, big minus. They are a minus 167 hosting the Timbers. Timbers are a plus 409 in the composite. Draws north of plus 300. Speaking of hot seats.
Hold on there for me.
All right.
I was inclined to say there was going to be an upset because I saw that number for Portland and it's pretty high. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to do that. Not at Columbus. I understand that they're objective and their eyes are all focused on CONCACAF for Columbus. Mm-hmm. I understand that Kerpo got a red card and you have a substitute goalkeeper for Timbers. But both of these teams, I think that their XG is pretty good and they create a lot of goal opportunities. So I think this is going to be a good 2-2 game again or something like that. So I'm going to go with the draw just because I feel like the Timbers have enough to make this Columbus team with some rotation uncomfortable. So I'm going to go with a draw on this one and make it one of those eyebrow raisers. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go ahead and stick to that draw.
All right. So since you said 2-2, I will just let you know that if your total is 3.5, over under is a plus 141 dealing with 3.5. So you're on the plus side if you think it's going to be a 2-2, if you say that your total's 3.5.
I like it. I'll take both of those. Yes, sir.
All right. So next one on the board, we mentioned hot seats, and our buddy Dell does as well. Cheapest ticket for anybody to go see Messi and friends, dealing with Inter Miami and Nashville. It is $100 to get in the door to see Messi and friends at their barn in Fort Lauderdale. And Gary Smith on the hot seat, we probably figure as well here in this one. Messi and Friends, a big favorite at a minus 222. Draws a plus 363. Gary Smith has said he needs reinforcements in the summer window. Nashville to win is a plus 527.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. I don't even.
That's probably symbolizing Gary Smith being on the hot seat more than anything else. It ain't happening right now.
No, and he's not lying about needing more players and needing some help. I mean, that's we got to give Gary that. And I think that the biggest problem is simply that it's been so much of the same for the coach that as an organization, you got to ask yourself, if we want to change things up, maybe we start there.
Yeah.
And just results haven't been there. Not even the defensive forte that he's had in the past hasn't quite been there. But this one, I'm not taking even at 600. I'm kidding.
Nope.
I'm not taking that at all. I just think that even with the Jordi Alba situation and the injury, I thought Franco Negri was a guy that every time he's come in, he's been fantastic. He can do a lot of the Alba-ish things. Diego Gomez had himself a ball. What a game he had against Sporting Kansas City. He's really put that midfield on his back. I know he played the wing in this one, but it doesn't matter where you put him. The effort, the vision, the way he crashes the box, everything about Diego Gomez is fantastic. You put that with Messi, you put that with Busquets. I just think that it's too much talent still for this Nashville team. And what are the numbers for Miami anyways?
Minus 222.
Yeah, I'm not taking that. But you know what? Miami's going to win that game. And is that going to be what pushes Gary Smith at the door? I don't think so. I think it's going to have to be a little bit more than that for him to go out. I mean, he's held on for dear life. And again, he's not lying about the roster that he has currently. So I think this is not the game that pushes Gary Smith out, but I do see Miami winning that game.
Yep. All right. So next one on the board, NYC, a plus 110. Riding that hot streak, that one win in a row. Riding a hot streak. They're playing at Citi Field. They're playing DC United. And good for you. You're a plus 110. DC is a plus 2.25. Toronto and the Revs. Toronto's a plus 121 north of the border. Revs are a plus 210, not necessarily a surprise. 8:30 Eastern. Fire and RSL. Fire actually favored at a plus 124. RSL is a plus 200 to win in the composite on the road at Chicago. Draws north of plus 250.
Wow. Really?
Uh-huh.
I'll take me some RSL for at 280. That's pretty good. Chicago, man, they struggle they are their own worst enemy in so many parts of the field, and they're lacking so much leadership. There's just nothing special about Chicago right now, and you see it game over and game over. It's just there's nothing special about Chicago. When in RSL, I just like there's so many things that can change, and they have a whole bunch of game changers in so many parts of the field that I'll be comfortable taking this one. What's the look on goals for that one?
3.5 is a plus 178. So if you're thinking 2-2 again, you can get that at a plus 178 at 3.5.
No, we'll just take RSL. I think that's good enough for my blood. I think I like it.
Plus 200 for RSL. Copa Tejas, Houston on the minus side, hosting Austin. Minus 145 for the Dynamo. Austin is a plus 378 in the composite. Sporting and all caps. This one is interesting. Sporting Kansas City and St. Louis City. Sporting is a minus 130 at home. St. Louis City on the road is a plus 305 because of absence. Draws north is just about to plus 300 in the composite. So the
safest bet here is the draw. Safest bet here is the draw. I think St. Louis will make things difficult for Kansas City. We know that they're dealing with quite a few absences. I know that Peter Vermees probably wants to probably go all in and set the tempo early. But this team does do well in counter. So I think the draw there is going to be the safest bet. I definitely wouldn't take Sporting Kansas City in this one. So, yeah, I think we'll go with the draw.
Plus 297. Colorado on the minus side hosting FC Dallas. No real surprise. Late games, LAFC on the minus side at a minus 119 hosting Red Bulls. The matchup I want to talk to you about on the late game on Saturday, Seattle hosting Vancouver in Cascadia. Seattle's a minus 108. Your draw is a plus 257 in the composite. Vancouver to win is a plus 279, considering their position at the top of the Western Conference.
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. The numbers tell you that they really think highly of the Sounders at home. This Vancouver team has been good. I mean, I think that game against the LA Galaxy should have been 3-3. Should have been even high in scoring that we saw. White had 3 or 4 chances in front of goal that he should have put away against the LA Galaxy, but he just was unable to. I think Seattle defensively can hold and limit this Vancouver team the same way they handled the best offense in the West, which is the LA Galaxy. I just don't know if they have enough offensively to exploit those holes that this Vancouver team does give out. This week, we spoke to Brian about not going the extra mile, not being more aggressive in Dallas in a game where it seemed like they were the better team. It seemed like they could have got some points against a poor version of the FC Dallas. And he admitted that he was a little conservative and he didn't put Leo Chu because Leo Chu's forte is not defense. And he didn't want to give up the point on the road. And I just think maybe in this one, he's going to have to do the opposite and be more aggressive and play everything he has to just get a win here at home. But I like the draw in this one. I feel like these teams both balance themselves out in terms of what they do well and what they don't. I think it'll be a fun one. It'll be back and forth. I'm not saying it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm just saying that a lot of opportunities are going to be created in this one. And I can see this as a 1-1 game. And I'll take the draw for this game at
plus 257. So
yeah.
Plus 257 on the draw. 2 games on Sunday. 6 Eastern, Charlotte on the minus side hosting the Loons, who are a plus 258. And then the Cali Classico. LA Galaxy, San Jose Earthquakes. A lot of shine has been taken off of this one, understandably. So Galaxy a minus 175. Draws a plus 353. San Jose is a plus 384. I think this one could get ugly.
Yeah, no, I don't like none of those. So can you give me that New York Red Bulls one? I know we're going to go back to Saturday, but sure. I'm not taking either one of the Sunday games. I might just watch the Galaxy game because they've been fun to watch, but against San Jose might be a stretch. So let me get that New York Red Bulls game because I'm interested in those numbers.
LAFC minus 119. This is the composite. So basically 119 is your range. Draw plus 264. Red Bulls to win a plus 307.
Give me the Red Bulls. Give me the Red Bulls and mark it on my calendar as the one that you're going to tell me you're crazy. But I feel it right here. I think that the Red Bulls have done a lot of rebuilding in terms of the way they play their offense and the style of play. And they're no longer a team that's just based on pressing and just that Red Bull ball that we used to see in. They've evolved from that. And I think that they can give LAFC some trouble. So the numbers tell you that you shouldn't, but I'm telling you that you should. So let me get the plus 300 on the New York Red Bulls.
All right. So what's going on at Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports, my friend?
All right. We got Soccer Bar here coming up. We're going to hear a little bit more about the Seattle Sounders and what's going on. We spoke to Josh Atencio and JP this week. And beyond the soccer aspect, I feel like this Sounders team needed a little bit more fire, more more attitude, a little bit more anger in that second half to close it. There is this terrible challenge by Arriola where he takes out João Paulo. He's standing over him for about a minute, and no one in the Sounders team shoves him off their player, someone that just came in that has been dealing with an injury. And the fact that no one had that in them to just say, hey, back off my dude, really bothered me. So I asked JP about it. I asked Josh Atencio about it. They both agreed that they need to do better in those sort of situations, that could ignite a fire within this team. So check those out at Pulso Sports. We have both of those interviews with both Josh Atencio and JP talking about that, talking about the game against the Whitecaps. And in Soccer Bar, we'll be going about all of these things that we're just talking about, plus some Open Cup stuff. What are some of the chances for Columbus to be the team that finally gets another title in CONCACAF for MLS? So go ahead and check that out in about 40 minutes.
There you go. So as always, at El Rolo NW on the Twitters, the 280-character app, at Sports Pulso, at the Soccer Bar. Thanks as always, my friend, and may your juice boxes continue to behave in a manner that makes your wallet heavy and not light. We will catch up with you again next week, my friend.
I appreciate it, my man. Hopefully I don't lose what I got last week.
No, sir. All right, so Niko's going to go enjoy his second cup of coffee. He's headed to the Soccer Bar. So a Soccer Bar, Pulso Sports Pulso on the 280-character app. And Dell doing our intel for Nashville. For Dell, it's Todd Bryan and Unga and friends. I get that completely. Gary Smith says, Randall Leal, Tyler Boyd available for selection this weekend. Walker Zimmerman, Shaq Moore out on the field in full training could be included, but might be more likely to return next weekend. And yeah, Dell, I mean, I know that we do talk about these kinds of things with hot seats early on, but, anemic right now is what you're looking at with Nashville. It's like Hani Mukhtar, Sam Surridge is not an answer, and Jacob Schaffelberg is more of an answer for Nashville than other folks at present. You pin Hani Mukhtar in, you don't want possession. If you don't want possession if you're Nashville. You're looking to create pressure, get things in transition. You don't want possession. You try to be clinical with your finishes. That's how Nashville's trying to put goals on the board. But if you force Nashville to possess the ball, then it's trouble. So we'll see what happens with Nashville. We do have the groups or the divisions that are now out for the Open Cup round of 32. So let's go ahead and roll that. All right, so we mentioned the Alonso division and how that's looking for Atlanta. The Alonso division, once again, Atlanta United, Charleston Battery, Tormenta, and Charlotte Independence. The Gonsalves division, groups FC Dallas with Tampa Bay, Birmingham Legion, and Memphis 901. Hakala Nolan. This one's a bit, you're going to have an odd duck in here. And legitimately, it's you right now, you end up with folks that are three and then one off to the side. Hakala Nolan, Sporting Kansas City, FC Tulsa, Union Omaha, and the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. So whoever gets the Riverhounds is going to either be traveling or Bob Lilly is going to scream because he's traveling. The La2 division is 50-50. Wow. Seattle, Phoenix Rising, Lou City, and North Carolina FC. So it's two over here and two over here. The Lopez division has San Jose Earthquakes, Sacramento Republic, Oakland Roots, and Monterey Bay. The Mark division, LAFC, Orange County, Vegas Lights, and Loudoun United. You know the folks at Segra are pissed about that, unless they get the home game. The Onstad division, Houston Dynamo, San Antonio, Detroit City, Indy 11. So you've got 2 and 2, which probably means you'll end up with a crossover. And the Watson division, RSL, Colorado Springs, New Mexico United, and NYC FC 2. So your divisions for the round of 32, draw groups. The Alonso division makes sense. The Gonsalves division has FC Dallas and 3 Southeastern teams. Ocala-Nolan has 3 Midwestern clubs and Pittsburgh. The Latu division has 2 in the East and 2 in the West. What did Sebastian Latu do to piss them off? The Lopez division is all West. The Mark division has 3 and Loudon, 3 in the West and Loudon United. You know they're mad unless they get the home game at Segra. And then the Onstad division has 2 in Texas, 2 in the Midwest. The Watson division has 3 in the Mountain Time Zone and NYC FC 2. So that's what it looks like for the round of 32. Those are your divisions. 1 o'clock here on the network, we're going to do the watch along. And we'll lay it all out and see what's going on. So get your paper and your pens for 1 o'clock when we lay everything out. Another big show. Thanks to Niko for dropping by. Thanks to Jason for dropping by. As he and Maddie are up at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground getting ready for Atlanta United. And the twos this weekend. It's a weekend of Atlanta taking on Cincinnati as a group. Saturday, it's Atlanta United and Cincy and FC Cincinnati. Atlanta United 2, FC Cincinnati 2 at the Fraction Sunday afternoon. 2:30 start, 3:03 for the kick. So we've got all of that going on. Very, very busy week in general. Noon here on the network, it is going to be Soccer's in Session. We'll go through all of the brackets, get you ready for day 3 of round 1, and it's the beginning of the even numbers. 2A, 4A, 6A girls today. We have completed single A divisions 1 and 2, 3, 5, and 7. We'll go over boys and girls in both of those and get you ready for day 3, day 1 of the 2, the 4, and the 6 ladies first. That'll be at noon, brought to us by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. Then at 1 o'clock, Open Cup watch along. That'll get you ready for the next round of the playoffs. Big look at Open Cup today, rightfully so, because of the chaos. Big look today at Champions League because of the chaos. Jason came in, Niko came in. We're getting you ready for the rest of the day. So very, very busy day across the board. Thanks to everybody who was dropping in and hanging out with us. Abby, yes, public service announcement. Remember, 7:30 Friday night, Reverb by Hard Rock. We are there. We've sent the invite out to the supporters groups. Bit of a pep rally, conversations and such. Getting you ready for Atlanta United and FC Cincinnati. And we are hoping that you will be there. It's at the Rooftop Bar, Reverb by Hard Rock Atlanta, downtown, across the street from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Jason will be there. I will be there. Maddie will be there. It'll be a cast of thousands. We want you to be there, too, and experience the Rooftop Bar. Keith Sumter, the general manager of the Reverb by Hard Rock Hotel, great friend and great friend of the network, and he is letting us have the Rooftop Bar for an hour or so to break everything down involving Atlanta and FC Cincinnati. We want you to be there. Reverb by Hard Rock Atlanta at downtown on 7:30, but be there early. Make an evening of it. Come on downtown, hang out with us. We're there for the preview of Atlanta United and FC Cincinnati, and you get to be there as well. Reverb by Hard Rock Atlanta tomorrow night, 7:30. SDH getting you ready for FC Cincinnati. So back at the top of the hour, and it will be Soccer's in Session, getting you ready for the playoffs, all that stuff. SDH Live Tour on Friday. Soccer's in Session, going through all the high school stuff. That is coming up at the top of the hour. U.S. Open Cup watch along at 1 o'clock. So for everybody here at SDH, as we're getting ready for a very busy day, get your pencils and your erasers, get everything all squared away. I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us. And Derek, good to see you as well. But once again, back at noon, we're talking high schools. Back at 1 o'clock, we're talking Open Cup. Very, very busy day here on the network, hoping that you will be a part of it and looking forward to it. So for everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us here. And because it is the end of the show, Mucha Platiel, play it safe. It means I get to do this. Back in about 40 minutes on the live side here on Twitch, on the YouTube channel, and on the 280 character app. Play it safe. See you in a bit.